Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Mosaic Coffee Breaks. Today, we're joined by Jenny Screech from the Howden Group, an expert in all matters to do with professional indemnity insurance, and in particular as far as law firms are concerned. So, good morning, everyone, and good morning, Jenny.
Morning.
Hi, welcome along.
And right at the outset, perhaps, Jenny, can we ask you to tell us a little bit about your background and a little bit of your biog, so our viewers, our massive number of viewers, actually get a bit of a feel of what you're all about and your expertise.
Great. So thank you, Howard. Yes, I've been involved in the world of solicitors, PI, going back to 2020. Now, prior to that, I was in private practice as a solicitor. As you may have picked up from the accent, that wasn't in this country, that was back in New Zealand. But since 2020, I've been involved firstly as a claims solicitor with SIF and then Zurich Insurance. I then spent over 10 years as a solicitor's PI underwriter with Zurich and leading the legal professions team there. And then more recently, I have switched codes again and I support Howden with their broker proposition. So I've got the full set.
Okay. Fascinating. It's I think we're going to learn a huge amount from you, and it's very appropriate at this stage, just coming up to the PII renewal season and the holiday season, dare I say, for you to be with us. So perhaps just as a kick-off question, just can you give me a bit of a feeling of the trends of what's happening? I think we all know it's a hardening market, but just tell us a bit of the trends, how hard it is, and what's causing that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it is a hard market, and we've obviously been saying that for some time now. And, you know, this is really, it all leads back to claims activity and risk issues. I mean, if we go back to even 5 days, you know, we know from there that there's a really high incidence of claims against the legal profession. The SRA again published some market data in 2016 that told us the same thing. So it wasn't a surprise in 2018 when Lloyd's identified PI generally as one of the worst performing classes of business. And, you know, off the back of that, we saw the market start to harden, you know, particularly, you know, the real trigger, in my view, was April 2019. And it's continued through last year and the April renewal this year, we saw further rate increases. And, you know, it's when you look at the level of claims that are generated against solicitors, it's not surprising. I mean, particularly in more recent times, we're seeing a lot of activity around failed buyer-funded developments. Conveyancing is always a huge risk area, and historically has always accounted for more than 50% of the claims. So you've got that.
Have the number of claims actually increased that significantly, that it's causing a hardening of the market so heavily?
Yes, you know, we've the buyer-funded development issues. If you take that as an example, I mean, we know that, you know, to date, the market has paid out millions on that. We know that, you know, there are millions still sitting in terms of reserves. And when you look at conveyancing back over the years, you know, there's always something that is really, you know, pushing the boundaries in terms of claims activity. And of course, the insurers are looking through that sort of backwards lens at the moment, but they're also looking forwards. And they're concerned about what might come out of the work that's been done over the SDLT holiday period. They're concerned about the potential for the property market to falter post-pandemic, because again, history tells them that when that happens, claims against solicitors increase. So, you know, it's not just, you know, conveyancing. There are other areas that have claims as well, but, you know, that is certainly a big part of the issue.
Is it just solicitors, or I know one or two of my clients get a sense that solicitors are being picked on at the moment? Is it solicitors, or is the whole market hardening in PI?
Yeah, other professions are feeling this as well. You know, it is across the board, and in terms of professional indemnity, for example, the surveying community issues there as well. Accountants have seen increases, but certainly for the profession, it has been considerable, and at the moment it looks as though there may be a little way to go yet. Certainly we're warning people for October to expect some further uplift.
What sort of percentage?
Yeah.
What sort of percentage uplifts are you expecting? Sorry, Barry. What sort of percentage uplifts are you expecting in October?
Yeah, that's a really difficult one, because people are always interested to know what's the amount, but it varies from firm to firm, and it varies from insurer to insurer. What's been in the press post 1 April was around 30%. We came in a bit below that in terms of the average increase, but within that there's a huge range. Some firms had considerably less. For some firms it was more, but it's very much dictated by the unique characteristics of each firm, how much their insurer needs to achieve on their book in terms of increase to satisfy the people upstairs in their businesses. But yes, people should be prepared for some further movement in October. As a broker, well, obviously, brokers will be arguing and pushing back as hard as they can, but at the moment, nobody's leaving the market, but we haven't got any new capacity coming in either.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
It's not a capacity issue. It's more a claims issue.
Yes, we've still got a good level of A-rated capacity in the solicitors PI market, which is good, but they're being very cautious, particularly being very cautious about new business and taking on new firms. And again, if we go back to conveyancing, many of them are saying, well, no more than 20% gross fees can be related to conveyancing practice. Now, this time last year, it was more 25 to 30, but when we got to April, we saw a lot of insurers bringing that down even further. So while they'll, quote their existing firms, when it comes to looking at new business, huge amount of caution. And interestingly, while we've got these, very high premiums now, compared to what we had 2 years ago, we're not seeing any new players come in at the moment. And that's what we're all waiting for and hoping for, because that's the kind of activity that will help to stabilise the market. But that suggests that the other players out there are saying, well, yeah, we need to wait a while because we're not sure what might be on the horizon for law firms as far as claims is concerned, and particularly with reference to the economy, property market, etc.
Can I just ask you about this conveyancing issue, Jenny? There's been a boom in the last few months with conveyancing, and firms who were previously doing 20% conveyancing, many of them are easily doing 30% now. Does that mean their existing insurers are likely to want to walk away? And if so, how on earth can the firms counter that?
Yeah, to date we have seen insurers sticking with, generally speaking, sticking with their existing insureds and offering them new renewal terms. If your conveyancing has gone from 20% to 30%, you may have more difficulty getting alternative quotes. There are some firms that may strike trouble with their existing insurers, but we would, again, brokers will push back very, very hard, on that. If you've got a significant practice in conveyancing, it's to be expected, given what we've seen with the SDLT holiday, that your percentage of conveyancing may have increased. What firms really need to do is make sure that they are very careful to explain to their insurer what they have done to mitigate the risk in terms of their practice. And I know from talking to firms, some of them have been very, cautious. They put up fees to control the level of conveyancing coming in some instances. And that's a really good thing. So they'll be saying to insurers, yes, but look at our transaction numbers. You know, we charged, you know, more for the work. You know, many of them had got to a certain point and said, right, we're not accepting any more instructions because we've got the deadline, you know, to accommodate. So, you know, I think firms out there have been, you know, very careful as far as, you know, risk is concerned, and it's really important that they tell that story to their underwriter at renewal.
Jenny, we're talking about percentage of conveyancing to the total fee income. What about the firms that are almost entirely conveyancing linked? And is there a difference between commercial conveyancing versus domestic conveyancing?
Yeah, first of all, the residential versus commercial, we have generally a higher incidence of frequency of claims than residential, but commercial gives us the higher value claims. But when insurers are setting their threshold as a percentage of gross fees, that is generally on a combined basis. So they're looking at, you know, both factors. And, you know, if you're a firm that does, you know, 95 or 100% conveyancing, and, you know, that's always been the situation, then there should be no reason why, you know, if your claims experience is still very good, you're still controlling risk, there should be no reason why you shouldn't be offered renewal terms, you know, come this October. And, you know, certainly some of the specialist conveyancers out there have excellent, you know, claims records. So that's why, again, it comes back very much to the individual firm as well.
I know you will say it will depend on the individual firm, but you're talking about a good claims record. What if somebody just has an aberration, one bad claim? Is that going to make them virtually uninsurable?
Again, you know, it depends. It depends on the nature and scope of that. You know, there can be occasions, you know, where one claim can be the problem. Where a firm has an issue with their claims, you know, activity, again, it's really about looking at explaining that from a risk perspective. And, you know, as an underwriter, you know, you see that sometimes a firm may have had an excellent claims history for a number of years, and then suddenly there's an issue, and it might be related to a fee earner. It might be a one-off large claim. It might be a series of small claims. What's really important at that point is that the firm says, yes, we've had this issue. This is what we've identified, and this is what we've done about it. Yeah. And it's a real concern. I think sometimes firms fall into the trap of thinking, right, I'll just put my proposal form in and hope that nobody quite notices that, and because we've been with them for 5 years, it'll all be okay, which is very much the wrong thing to do. You know, it will be noticed. Insurers are in the business of dealing with claims, so they expect firms to have claims. But what they want to know is that people have actually learned from that experience, and that they've identified the risks, and that they can give some comfort that, you know, this is not going to happen again going forward. So, you know, the worst thing to say to an underwriter is, oh, it's a one-off claim. If I had £1 for every time I heard something was a one-off claim, I'd be very wealthy.
Well, that brings us to the end of part 1 of our interview with Jenny Screech from the Howden Group. Fascinating as ever. And watch out for part 2 coming to a laptop near you shortly. Goodbye.